I'm Lindy.
And I'm Bella.
And today we're going to be talking about The Princess Bride. But first we kind of wanted to start off talking about a little bit about ourselves and why we're doing this and stuff like that, since it is the first episode. And I'm sorry, because when I listen to podcasts, I hate when they do this, but I want everyone to know a little bit about us. But first off, we are doing this because it is our cast project because we're both IB diploma candidates. So it'll take a long time to explain what the IB curriculum is, so that's basically just why we're doing this. It's like a school project, basically.
We both really like movies, and we like thinking about, we both take like HL Lit classes, and we like analyzing things, thinking about, why creators made the choices that they did, and we thought that this would be a perfect way to be able to talk to each other and all of you guys about that and about our favorite movies.
Let's give you a little synopsis of what this movie is. So this is a fantastical comedy movie about two lovers named Buttercup and Wesley, and they're separated and they have to find their way back to each other. So Bella, do you want to talk a little bit about why you like this movie so much and why we chose it?
Yeah, so I have watched this movie since I was very, very young, so I definitely think that there's like a nostalgia aspect to it. But overall, I just think it's really well made. Like, every character, you can tell that they have a very distinct motive, and it doesn't seem too unrealistic, but there's still, like, the fantasy aspect to it. And I love the fact that they added in kind of, like, the, basically in the movie, the main idea is that Buttercup and Wesley are finding each other, but the whole thing is a story being told from a grandfather to his grandson, and I love that they kind of added that element into it, especially because The Princess Bride is a actual book, which is just about that doesn't have that grandpa-grandson element, and so I like that they added that kind of relationship to it, and yeah, overall I just really like the pacing of the movie and the way that it's made.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that it was originally a book, which I think is really interesting, especially with that whole like grandfather-grandson plot. This movie is really important to me because it's like one of the first movies I can remember like watching with like my family. Like my dad was the one who showed me this, and he like it just has like it's like so much is ingrained just like in my memories like as a child.
Yeah.
Like I remember my dad would be like he would like tickle me and stuff, and he'd be like, "No escape from the princess for the princess this time," which is like a quote from the movie. So yeah, it just has like a special place in my heart. But there are some scenes that terrified me as a kid, which we will get into later.
Very true.
Okay, so I guess we should start. So the top of the movie, as we said, is like this like whole like grandfather-grandson plot. So it's like, is the kid sick, right?
Yeah, the kid's sick at home, and his mom is basically telling him that grandpa's gonna come and read him a story and make him feel better.
Yeah, which I like totally forgot about that whole plot, because like I hadn't watched the movie in like a couple years since like we did this, and I just like I like did not remember that at all. I just remembered like the whole thing with like Buttercup and Wesley and finding their way back to each other, and like the movie opened with like the grandfather and grandson. I was like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
But I think it makes the like whole story of The Princess Bride like a lot more like fantastical, I guess, like that, because it's like you can see it's more like oh, this is like a story that they're being told, and not just like just this weird movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that it's interesting the way that they did that is you kind of get to see the movie or like the tale being interrupted by the boy's commentary. So it's like the same kind of thoughts that we might have while we're watching the movie. You get to see him have those same ideas throughout his grandpa telling him the story. And also you can kind of see his engagement go up throughout the movie. So I think that that's interesting as well.
Yeah. But I think, the interjections, I think a lot of it is just like humor based. Like, I think, like, the one about, like, he's like, is this just a kissing book, Grandpa? Like, I just, like, it was so funny, because it's also, like, especially because it's making fun of, like, the audience, too, because it's, like, that part is when, like, Wesley and Buttercup are, like, they're, like, kissing and they're in love, and it's just, like, oh, wait, I was really into that, and this kid is, like, making fun of me for that. But, yeah, so after the whole thing with when they start the tale, then we get into see Buttercup and Wesley be in love. And I just think, like, their love is so pure, and, like, it's beautiful. I love it.
I completely agree. I want a love like Buttercup and Wesley.
Yeah.
The way that he cares so much about her, and the way that she falls in love with him. I think it's especially important to note, like, no one really thinks about the fact that he was a farm boy, and she was, like, much higher up than him, like, on social status-wise, and so I feel like that makes it even more pure, like, the fact that they just love each other for who each other is. Also, like, I forget the actor's name, but, like, the guy who plays Wesley, just, like, the way he looks at her, it's so, like, it's just beautiful. I completely agree. I have a note in here about the way that he acts with his eyes, like, whether that be when he's looking at her or later in the movie when he, like, can't move anything else and he's just, like, fully acting with his face. I think it's so impressive.
Just the musical score behind it, too, like, the score behind it makes it, like, so much more, like, fantastical and stuff like that, I think, just because, like a lot, like when they're talking about like their love, it's like so like
Mm-hmm.
beautiful and upbeat and stuff like that. And like there's so many like beats in it that I think that just add like humor or
Yeah,
like
I
just like
agree.
create the mood around it, which is so cool.
Something that I really love about the movie, just overall, is the fact that there's an unclear antagonist. Because originally, she's kidnapped, and so you think that the three of them are the antagonists. But then once Vizzini is killed off, you see that the other men kind of, they didn't really, they were doing it in order to support themselves, like they were working for Vizzini in order to support themselves, but they didn't really want to hurt her. And then even going forward, you learn about the prince and his motives behind everything, and so it's kind of unclear, who is the true antagonist. And also it just shows like the very real idea of everybody having personal motivations for things and doing whatever they think is the best way to get that.
The first, I forget his name, but like the first like antagonist, the one who like kidnaps her.
Yeah.
Every time I hear his voice, I just think of the Incredibles, and like, cause I was like, I got like thrown through the wall. Like that's all I can think of every time I hear his voice, because it's such like a distinct like tone,
Yeah. I wonder if they realized that the inconceivable would become as,
Yeah.
as iconic as it is.
Yeah. That's the other thing we forgot to mention kind of in the beginning. Like there's so many lines in this that are just so
Yeah.
they're so iconic. Like the whole like thing with like I'm Inigo Montoya and I killed my
killed
father.
I'm prepared to die.
Like that's so ingrained in like the
love
culture
it.
and like the marriage. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
I
had also mentioned the score behind it and like the sound effects and the way that so like in the scene where she's in the water with the eels, the way that they're able to build suspense like using that music, and then the second like she's saved and brought back on the boat, it kind of is like a shift into like this melancholia, and so like you can really feel her emotion in all of the moments just because of like the sound effects that they put behind it or the score that they put behind it.
Yeah, some of the things I mentioned for like the music aspects is I think it's really cool how like they add like different themes almost, like when Wesley and like who was it? Somebody else was fighting. You can see like hear these like Western themes behind it almost. Yeah. And then like the Prince Humperdinck, he has his own like musical theme that like every time like he shows up, they play this theme. And like a couple other ones too. It's like they just have they have their own musical themes and things like that. Yeah, the music also like adds a lot of comedy. Like when I think it's a scene where Wesley is like, it's like after he gets like the electrocuted and he like can't move. Like it adds like comedy because it's like every time his like head fell to the side, it would like do like a bump, so it would be like bump,
the downbeat.
Bump.
Yes. Yeah, I think overall they just do a very good job with the sound and the visuals, like creating suspense or like making the emotion of the moment very noticeable. For like example, when they're climbing up the cliff or like with the rope, and it just kind of zooms out and shows how far away they are from the ground. I just think overall like the way that is done, both the visuals and the sound effects are very good for the movie.
Yeah. And then also just with the costume design, I think the costumes in it are just like so beautiful, and like it's such like, maybe we should get into some of the characters, because there's a lot of like really iconic characters in this movie, and so many like incredible actors, like
for sure.
Inigo Montoya, obviously an iconic character,
unbelievable.
He's so funny, like never fails. I mean obviously he's like a super like big actor now, which I did not know for like the longest time that he was the guy in Criminal Minds.
Neither did I. My mom told me, and I was like, that is insane. Yeah, no, he looks so different.
Yeah.
But I love his character. I love the fact that he has a very clear motivation for what he's doing. He wants to find the six-fingered man. He wants to avenge his father, and however, that doesn't like stop him from being a good person. He still looks out for Fezzik, Fezzik, and the Man in Black or Wesley and Princess Buttercup, but he's striving towards this one goal. And I also love that detail isn't like forced into the movie. It feels like it progresses very naturally. Like he meets the Man in Black and he asks, "Oh, by any chance do you have six fingers on your hand?" And like here's kind of like the reason that I asked that question. It doesn't seem like something that's forced into the end when he finally meets him. It's like throughout what he's aiming to do.
The one character that I'm kind of like meh on is Fezzik. Because he's just not a great actor.
Yeah, I get that.
But
I feel like they needed him for his size.
It's because he's a wrestler.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that either before I was like doing some research for it. But like, yeah, it makes sense that he's like, it's interesting though, because obviously this was made in 1987, because like now they would have just hired like a normal actor and then like made them look like huge, like with like different camera angles and things like that.
Yeah, so it does show the age.
He is very sweet and I love him for that, but like as him as an actor, it was kind of like,
I definitely agree with that.
Also, let's talk about some scary moments that we have. 'Cause there were a couple times that the two of us had talked about how these scenes scared us as a kid, and they still kind of freak us out now. So the first one I want to talk about is the Boo Lady in the dream sequence. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I would go watch it because, like, it's weird, but it's like a dream that Buttercup's having where she's like, and she sees this like lady she's like getting married or something like that, right?
She's supposed to be married.
And she's like sees this lady in the crowd and she like steps out and she just goes, boo! And like keeps going.
Yells at her about like the fact that she would get married despite being in love with someone else. Horrifying. Like when I tell you that as a child it was so scary, like that haunted my nightmares. Yeah, that was definitely a scary part of the movie.
And like same thing with the costume design. It's like she's wearing this like all white, and then this lady just has like this all black.
Yeah, a very, very good contrast.
And her face was just
scary. I agree.
And then the other scene that scared me a lot that I still carry as a fear with me today is the scene with the machine. That gave me a fear of electrocution for life. Like I remember watching this when I was probably like 3-4 years old. It's probably one of the oldest memories I have. And I was like, it just freaked me out. It scared me so much. And like, I still have a fear of electrocution now. Like, I could not watch like these scenes.
And even if you're not scared of it, it's just so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Tell me why they had to put like the little sucker things like over his like nipples. Like, why?
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. And like, imagine you're just like a 10-year-old kid and you're just like watching this with your parents and like he's not making any noise but like grunts and groans and it's just so uncomfortable.
And like I could be wrong here, but I feel like there was like no music in the scene. Like I feel like it was just like his grunting. Like,
no, yeah, and just like the sound of the machine working in the background. I also think that's this is a very specific line. I don't know why I think it's as funny as it is, but when that machine is happening and Wesley is like screaming out in agony, Inigo says to Fezzik, you can see them in the village, and he's like, oh, I know that sound. That's the man in black. Like my heart made that sound when my father died, and he makes that sound now because his true love is like getting married or something. And like, while that is true, like he would be heartbroken, I just think it's funny that they don't even know that he is literally being tortured. They're like, oh, he's screaming out in pain because his true love is getting married to the prince.
And then the like other thing that I had, and like this kind of goes along with the machine, but like more so other things, it was 1987, but the effects are so tacky.
Yeah.
Like some of the examples I have are like climbing up the rope. You can see that Wesley's feet are like not moving at all.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's just like his arms like moving. It's so odd. And then like the rodents.
Oh my gosh, they're horrible.
Yeah, and like the fire swamp.
They're made so horribly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, speaking of the fire swamp, I hold my breath when they fall into the quicksand. And I see if I could survive it just like them. And I've done it ever since I was little.
Uh-huh. But also with the kids like interjections and stuff, I feel like it like makes it more like manageable. So I feel like my heart kept getting like these things would happen to them, like they were stuck in the fire swamp or something like that.
Yeah.
And like my heart would be beating so fast. I'm like, oh my god, I wonder if they're gonna get out of this. And then it's like the kid comes on, he's like, he's not dead. And it's like, oh okay, like this is just a story.
Exactly, you remember, oh, there's so much book left and like all that kind of stuff. Like there has to be more to it. But yeah, also, oh my gosh, in the fire swamp, the way that she acts with the rodents of unusual size, it bothers me so much because I feel like it is really out of character, because like you see right after that the fact that like when the prince comes back, she's like, as long as you promise not to hurt him, like you can take me, you can do whatever you want for me. She's a relatively brave girl, and the fact that in the fire swamp, like she is just so helpless. He's being attacked by these like huge rodents and she does absolutely nothing. Like she's just like, Wesley, like, oh, that one part bothers me so much, especially because I love the way that they develop the characters. I hate that that's so out of character for her in there.
There's also just so many like funny moments that I think just make this movie like what it is. Like so many just characters are so funny. Like when like we were talking about earlier, the guy who kidnaps Buttercup, like his death was funny when I was 5. And it's funny now.
Yes, 100%.
Like the way he's just talking and then slumps.
He's so confident.
Yeah. And the man who saves like Wesley after like the machine and like his wife.
Yes.
They
Oh
freaked
my
me out as a
gosh.
kid, but they're
They
so
also
funny.
freaked me out as a kid, but they are so funny. And the fact that when they leave, like, the place, they're like, oh, thank you so much for, like, this magical pill. And the people, he's like, do you actually think it's gonna work? And they're like, it would take a miracle. Like, they're scammers. 110% they are scammers, and I just think that is so funny that they're relying on him for, like, this magic.